If you've spent any time in the health or fitness corners of the internet lately, you've probably heard people raving about a little capsule called TUDCA and calling it a liver reset or detox in a bottle. What most people don't realize is that TUDCA isn't some new invention at all. It's actually a bile acid your own body already makes in tiny amounts, and it's been used in medicine for liver problems for years. Quick but important reminder. Nothing here is medical advice. Always talk with a qualified healthcare professional before starting, stopping, or changing any supplement or medication, including TUDCA. So, what is this stuff in simple terms? TUDCA is short for toro-urso-deoxycholic acid. It's a special kind of bile acid. Think of bile acids as your body's dish soap for fats. They help you break down and absorb fats from food, and they're made from cholesterol in your liver. TUDCA is formed when your body attaches an amino acid called taurine to another bile acid called UDCA. Your liver and your gut bacteria team up to make small amounts of it naturally. A helpful analogy, imagine each of your cells is a busy factory. TUDCA acts like a combination of plumber and quality control manager for those factories. As a plumber, it helps keep bile flowing smoothly so toxic, harsh bile acids don't back up and damage liver cells. As a quality control manager, it helps stressed out cells fold their proteins correctly and avoid self-destructing when they're overwhelmed. Scientists have seen a few big ways TUDCA seems to work. First, it helps make bile less irritating and improves bile flow, which can protect liver cells from damage when bile is backing up, like in certain cholestatic liver diseases. Second, it acts as what's called a chemical chaperone inside cells, calming down something called endoplasmic reticulum stress. Basically, it helps proteins fold correctly so the cell doesn't panic and start a death cascade. Third, it helps stabilize mitochondria, the little power plants in your cells, and can reduce some inflammatory and oxidative stress signals. Yes, your body does make TUDCA on its own. The liver makes primary bile acids, your gut bacteria modify them into other forms, and some of those eventually become UDCA and TUDCA. That means things that affect your liver health and your gut microbiome, like diet, alcohol, medications, and overall metabolic health, will indirectly affect how much TUDCA you're making and recycling. Now let's talk about where you actually get TUDCA in real life. There aren't meaningful food sources of TUDCA the way there are for vitamin C or magnesium. Historically, it was extracted from bear bile in traditional Chinese medicine. Modern TUDCA is made synthetically or with microbial processes, so it doesn't come from animals anymore, which is a big relief ethically. So for most people, the real sources are your own liver and gut, and possibly a supplement. You can't realistically eat your way to a therapeutic TUDCA dose. But you can support your natural bile system with simple habits. Eating enough fiber, not going super low fat for long periods, staying well hydrated, limiting heavy alcohol use, and including some bitter foods like arugula, dandelion greens, and citrus peel that gently nudge bile flow.
When does it make sense to look at supplements instead of just lifestyle? Usually in two situations. One, a healthcare provider is already looking at your liver and bile health and thinks it might help as part of a plan. Or two, you're in a higher risk category for sluggish bile or liver stress, and you and your clinician decide the potential benefits outweigh the unknowns. TUDCA is used as a licensed drug in some liver diseases in the US, and similar bile acids are standard treatment in certain cholestatic conditions. So it's not totally experimental, but using it as an over-the-counter wellness supplement is still a bit ahead of the strongest science. Most supplement products offer TUDCA in capsule form, often 250 milligrams or 500 milligrams per capsule. Typical daily supplemental ranges on labels and in reviews are around 250 to 1,500 milligrams per day, usually split into 2 or 3 doses. For general liver support, many products land in the 250 to 500 milligrams per day range, while higher doses are usually reserved for specific medical conditions in clinical trials. As for timing and absorption, most consumer guides recommend taking TUDCA with meals, ideally ones that contain some fat, because bile release is triggered by fat and that may help the supplement mix into the bile pool. Some clinical trials gave it without food, so we don't have a single perfect rule. A reasonable approach is start with a low dose, take it with a normal meal, and see how your stomach tolerates it. Things that might reduce its absorption include taking it at the same time as medications that are designed to bind bile acids, like bile acid sequestrants, or very high doses of certain fibers or clays that bind bile. Those grab bile acids in the gut and carry them out, which is great if that's the goal, but not ideal if you're trying to absorb TUDCA. Quality-wise, look for brands that are third-party tested, made in a GMP-compliant facility, and transparent about ingredients. Many mid-range products run roughly the equivalent of about $20 to $30 for a month or two of 250 milligram capsules, depending on your dose and where you live.
Who might even consider this in the first place? TUDCA isn't like an iron or vitamin D deficiency where we have clear lab cutoffs. There's no standard blood test that says, you're low in TUDCA. Instead, we think more about situations where bile flow, liver stress, or certain cellular stress pathways might be a problem. That can include people with cholestatic liver diseases, some types of fatty liver, long-term use of certain liver-stressing medications, metabolic syndrome, or specific neurodegenerative diseases being studied in trials. From a symptom perspective, things that could point to bile or liver issues include frequent bloating after fatty meals, pale or clay-colored stools, very dark urine, yellowing of the eyes or skin, intense itching without a clear rash, or right upper abdominal discomfort. Those are all reasons to see a doctor, not reasons to self-prescribe TUDCA. A simple self-check you can do right now is to ask yourself a few questions. Do you drink heavily or very frequently? Has your doctor ever told you your liver enzymes were high? Do you live with type 2 diabetes, obesity, or very high triglycerides? Have you taken medications known to strain the liver, like certain steroids, for long periods? If you're nodding yes to several of those, you're in a group where it might make sense to have a proper liver and metabolic workup before even thinking about supplements. In terms of lab tests, common ones to discuss with your clinician are a liver panel, which includes enzymes like ALT, AST, GGT, and alkaline phosphatase, plus bilirubin. In some situations, doctors may also check specific bile acid markers or order imaging like an ultrasound to look at your liver and gallbladder. For metabolic health, tests like fasting glucose, A1C, and triglycerides can help build the bigger picture. Let's make this concrete with a few personas. First, the budget-conscious eater. Maybe you're worried about your liver, but supplements are expensive. Your best move is to nail the basics. Cut back on heavy drinking if that's part of your life. Keep ultra-processed and deep-fried foods as sometimes foods. Walk after meals, and make sure your plate has plenty of vegetables and some protein. If your doctor suggests TUDCA, you might start with a lower dose, like 250 milligrams per day, from a reputable but affordable brand, and reassess with them after a few months, rather than jumping straight to high doses. Second, the vegan or ethical eater. Older sources talk about bear bile, which is understandably upsetting. The good news is that modern TUDCA is synthesized, not scraped from animals, and many brands label their products as vegan. If that matters to you, double-check the capsule ingredients and look for clear statements about synthetic or microbial production. You might also lean more heavily on lifestyle ways to support bile and liver health, and only add TUDCA if a clinician you trust is on board. Third, someone already living with a health condition like fatty liver, autoimmune liver disease, or a neurodegenerative diagnosis. For you, TUDCA is not a DIY project. In some liver conditions and in ALS and other neurodegenerative diseases, TUDCA has been studied as a drug, sometimes on top of standard treatments. Results are mixed. Some early and phase 2 data looked promising, but a recent large ALS trial over 18 months did not show a meaningful slowing of disease progression. If you're in this group, the right next step is to ask your specialist directly whether TUDCA has any role in your specific case. So what does the overall evidence actually look like? For liver disease, we have small to moderate clinical trials in specific conditions. In people with certain cholestatic liver diseases, daily doses between about 500 and 1,500 milligrams for several months have been linked to improvements in liver enzyme levels and bile acids, although not every study is huge or long-term. For metabolic health, there's at least one notable human study in about 20 adults with insulin resistance, where 1,750 milligrams per day of TUDCA for 4 weeks improved liver and muscle insulin sensitivity by roughly 30%. That sounds impressive, but it's still a single small trial, not a slam dunk for everyone with blood sugar issues. For neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS, there's a lot of enthusiasm based on animal and cell studies. TUDCA has shown the ability to reduce misfolded proteins, calm inflammation, and protect neurons in mouse models. And reviews published in the last few years call it a promising potential disease modifier. But when we move into bigger human trials, the story is more cautious. That ALS Phase 3 trial in over 300 people didn't meet its primary endpoint, reminding us that strong preclinical data doesn't always turn into clear clinical benefit. For general wellness use in otherwise healthy people, the evidence is still early and fairly thin. One major evidence review site flat out says the benefits in humans are unclear because we lack large, robust, well-controlled trials for most of the things people on social media claim TUDCA helps with. So if you like simple labels, we can say evidence is moderate for some very specific liver and metabolic uses, early and mixed for neurodegenerative and brain-related uses, and weak for broad detox or weight loss promises.
Now, safety and interactions. Overall, TUDCA appears to be reasonably well tolerated at typical doses in studies. Most commonly reported side effects are mild and digestive: loose stools, diarrhea, nausea, gas, or a bit of stomach discomfort, especially when starting or at higher doses. Some people report headaches or feeling a bit off for a few days when they first add it. Less common but more concerning situations are in people with severe liver disease, bile duct obstruction, or certain gallbladder problems. Because TUDCA changes bile composition and flow, using it without medical supervision when your bile ducts are blocked could make things worse. That's why many professional resources recommend checking with a healthcare provider if you've ever been told you have cirrhosis, bile duct issues, active gallstones, or unexplained jaundice before using it. On the interaction side, there are a few theoretical or observed issues. TUDCA is a bile acid, so drugs that bind bile acids, like bile acid sequestrants, can lower its absorption if taken together. Some pharmacology sources suggest TUDCA might alter how certain medicines, including some diabetes drugs and immune-suppressing drugs like cyclosporin, are handled by the liver and could potentially change their blood levels, although real-world data is limited. This is another reason to loop in your doctor or pharmacist if you're on multiple medications. We also don't have strong safety data in pregnancy and breastfeeding or in children, so it's usually recommended to avoid TUDCA in those groups unless a specialist specifically prescribes it for a clear reason. Clear red flags to stop TUDCA and seek medical help quickly include new or worsening yellowing of the eyes or skin, severe right upper abdominal pain, black or very pale stools, vomiting that won't stop, or a sudden rash or swelling after you start the supplement.
Let's quickly bust a few common myths before we wrap up. Myth 1. TUDCA is a magic detox pill that lets you trash your liver and then reset it on Monday. Reality, no supplement can undo ongoing alcohol abuse, poor sleep, and ultra-processed diets. Myth 2. If a little TUDCA is good, massive doses must be better. Reality, higher doses just raise the odds of side effects, and we don't have long-term safety data for megadoses. Myth 3, TUDCA replaces the need for medical care if your liver tests are off. Reality, it's at best one tool in a much bigger toolkit that includes diagnosis, lifestyle changes, and sometimes prescription medications. Quick recap. TUDCA is a bile acid your body already makes in tiny amounts. It seems to help protect cells under stress, especially in the liver and possibly the brain, mainly by improving bile flow and calming down cellular stress pathways. Evidence in humans is promising in some very specific situations, but still limited overall, and general detox claims are running way ahead of the science. Typical supplemental doses range from about 250 to 1,500 milligrams per day, usually split into 2 or 3 doses, with mild digestive side effects being the most common issue. If you want one actionable step today that doesn't require buying anything, focus on supporting your own bile and liver. Hydrate well, move your body daily, cut down on heavy drinking, and include some fiber and healthy fats in your meals so your bile system actually gets used and recycled. If after that you're still curious about TUDCA, bring it to your next appointment and ask your clinician if it fits your specific situation. Have you ever tried TUDCA, or is it completely new to you? What did you notice, if anything? Share your experience or questions in the comments so others can learn from you too. Let us know what supplement you would like to learn about next.